Welcome back to Who is League of Legends' Strongest Bot, a giant 1v1 tournament between every single intermediate bot, all to find out which bot is the strongest. The rules are simple. Both bots are assigned mid lane, and the first bot to get a kill wins the 1v1. But the League of Legends bots aren't very good at the game. Last time, we saw many failed turret dives, staring competitions, and one bot completely losing his mind. Whatever bot wins today's tournament will move on to a best of 3 series versus the winner from the last video, so go watch that to remain spoiler free. But there is another problem we have to address. There are 36 bots remaining in the roster, but we only need 32 bots to make a full tournament bracket. So to bring the numbers down, it's time for some quick play-ins matches with 8 randomly selected bots. The first matchup of play-ins is Ziggs vs Varus. After a bit of level 1 poke, Varus bot opens the tournament with a massive Flash Ghost combo, standing still and auto-attacking, and eventually killing Ziggs. Varus bot qualifies out of play-ins. The second play-ins game is Tryndamere vs Shyvana. After pushing up to turret, Tryndamere bot faced away from Shyvana, then stood still and aura farmed. This caused Shyvana bot to completely tweak out under turret. Then to assert even more dominance, Tryndamere bot hit the classic running move on the minion. Then ulting for absolutely no reason, Tryndamere bot shows that he doesn't need his ult to win the game. But finally at level 11, the two bots would actually fight it out. For some reason, Shyvana decided to run into the river, allowing Tryndamere to walk her down and eventually kill her. Tryndamere bot qualifies out of play-ins. The third play-ins match is Mordekaiser vs Rakan. Although Rakan is a support, at level 2 he goes all in, ignites, and actually almost gets the kill on Mordekaiser. But for the rest of the match, whenever the two would fight, it would be Rakan just barely living on a sliver of HP. Again and again, Rakan bot just barely got away, every single fight like an absolute rat. At level 10, Rakan would pull off the ultimate bait. Tanking Q from Mord, Rakan dashes away just barely alive, but mind controls Mordekaiser to dive under turret. With an ignite and a knock-up, Mordekaiser dies. Rakan bot qualifies out of play-ins. The final play-ins match is Wukong vs Warwick. Right from level 1, the two bots are scrapping it out. I have no idea how, but Wukong bot somehow hits this drifting move where his character just slides across the ground. But at level 2, Wukong would go for an E-trade under turret, tank a turret shot, then get run down by Warwick and eventually die. Warwick bot qualifies out of play-ins. With play-ins completed, we can begin round 1 of the tournament. 32 bots enter and only one bot will remain to face Annie in a best of 3 grand final. So let's find out who will make it through this massive gauntlet and be crowned the strongest bot. The first match of round 1 is Vayne vs Varus. At level 2, Varus bot decides to tank both the wave and the Vayne's autos, flashing away to just barely live. But then at level 4, Vayne bot decided to return the favor, tumbling in and instantly dying. Varus bot moves on to round 2. The next match is Smolder vs Zyra. In the comments of the last video, Zyra bot was getting hyped up for being an absolute demon in bot games. But at level 1, Zyra bot just kept fighting Smolder without her abilities. And with Smolder having PTA, Zyra just dies. Smolder bot moves on to round 2. Nasus vs Twitch was insanely embarrassing. Nasus bot literally didn't get a single hit in on Twitch during the entire 1v1, meaning he might actually be the worst bot in the entire tournament, getting autoed down at level 1 and dying. Twitch bot moves on to round 2. The next match is Urgot vs Milio. This matchup actually seemed pretty even in the beginning, but Milio bot was playing Milio and just simply had no kill threat on Urgot the entire game. Urgot bot would slowly whittle Milio down, then go for an all-in hitting his ult, but Urgot bot doesn't even need to use the ult, flipping Milio and killing him. Urgot moves on to round 2. Yorick vs Tryndamere was an all-out melee brawl. At level 1, the two bots would just auto back and forth, but then Yorick bot hit the flash for damage combo, moving nowhere and dying to Tryndamere. Tryndamere bot moves on to round 2. Taric vs Poppy was a similar hands-on brawl. At level 3, the two would trade heavily, then Taric hit the ignite and walk away technique. A rare move, but very powerful. Then at level 4, Poppy gets Taric bot super low, igniting him and diving, but Poppy gets cold feet, hesitates, and dies to turret. Taric bot moves on to round 2. Twisted Fate vs Miss Fortune was over fairly quickly. Trading orders back and forth, Twisted Fate almost died at level 2. After a quick reset, the two would fight again, but fighting with autos against an ADC is a recipe for disaster, and Twisted Fate bot was at a clear disadvantage. This arrogance led him to not utilizing his stun card and swiftly dying. Miss Fortune bot moves on to round 2. Next was Vex vs Nocturne. Nocturne bot might be one of the worst bots at the tournament, buying jungle item and never really going all in. Nocturne would just sit back and try to get some poke down with his Qs every now and then. But Vex bot was built different, constantly harassing Nocturne under turret, and at level 6, Vex bot was able to simply throw out a combo and kill Nocturne. Vex bot moves on to round 2. The 9th match of round 1 is Sona vs Rakan. Rakan bot barely qualified through play-ins, so I was interested to see if he had enough damage to kill this Sona, or if he will have to utilize the turret mind control technique from his play-ins match. The two would trade back and forth, never really being able to kill each other. But at level 8, Rakan bot goes all in, dealing a surprise amount of damage with his full combo. As Sona backs under turret, Rakan bot is the one getting mind controlled. Tanking turret, he goes for the kill. Looking at the slow motion replay, Rakan just barely gets the kill before dying. Rakan bot moves on to round 2. The next match is Sejuani vs Veigar. Sejuani got poked down early, but did this crazy faker level juke. Being on such low health, Sejuani was able to mind control Veigar bot to chase deeper. Tanking 2 turret shots, then trying to flash, perhaps one of the worst moves we've ever seen in bot tournament history. Sejuani is gifted the win and moves on to round 2. Sett vs Rumble was another melee brawl. Although Rumble doesn't have to aim his flamethrower, making it much easier for the bot to deal damage. Sett bot was extremely beefy, his passive allowing him insane lane sustain. Getting Rumble low, Sett gets dangerously close to the turret. Then at level 6, Sett hits a W with no grit and ultis for the kill. Sett bot moves on to round 2. Volibear vs Nautilus was one of the longest bot matches I've ever seen. Lasting for 30 minutes, the two bots were both unkillable. At level 5, Volibear bot started freaking out under turret. He just kept moving back and forth, too scared to approach. Then at level 7, Volibear found himself on low mana, allowing Nautilus bot to go all in. But still, he didn't have the damage to kill Volibear. This game lasted so long that Volibear bot was even able to take the first turret, and then the second turret. But finally, at level 15, the two bots would really fight it out. Both extremely tanky, but Nautilus ended up winning the trade. Volibear bot's arrogance didn't let him recall. Contesting Nautilus on the wave, Nautilus bot was easily able to kill him. Nautilus bot moves on to round 2. Seraphine vs Warwick was an absolute disaster. Warwick was just getting constantly poked down by Seraphine, eventually getting very low under turret. But Seraphine bot was out of mana. In a risky play, Seraphine bot flashes forward with her last piece of mana, hitting the double E to kill Warwick. Seraphine bot moves on to round 2. Renata vs Sivir was actually a hectic matchup. At level 4, the two bots started heavily poking each other down, and although Renata is a support, she was somehow actually pumping damage. Auto after auto into Ignite, Sivabot then steps back in and barriers for some reason, then Renata gets the kill with a sliver of health left. Renata bot moves on to round 2. The second last match of round 1 was Soraka vs Tristana, and Soraka bot was actually winning the early game with her constant Q harass. But as the game went on, Soraka bot's poke became more and more meaningless, and at level 5, Tristana bot leaps in and easily kills Soraka. Tristana bot moves on to round 2. The final match of round 1 was Vi vs Xin Zhao, two junglers battling it out. Xin Zhao bot was dominating the matchup, constantly getting Vi extremely low, but Xin Zhao was too merciful, just always walking away whenever Vi was killable. Again and again, Vi just kept surviving. Then Xin Zhao dived the low health Vi to try and kill, but tanking too many turret shots, Vi was able to kill Xin Zhao. Vi bot moves on to round 2. And with that, round 1 is over, and half of the bots have been eliminated. Now it's time to find out which bots will survive round 2 and make it to the quarterfinals. Varus vs Smolder was almost over at level 1. Smolder got poked down extremely low, and Varus bot got greedy trying to kill the Smolder under turret. At level 5, the two bots started fighting hard again, and Smolder had to use Flash to survive. Varus again got arrogant and went under turret, only just surviving. But at level 7, Varus would poke Smolder down and then hit a surprisingly quick combo to kill Smolder. Varus bot moves on to the quarterfinals. Twitch vs Urgot was over super fast. Urgot bot was getting spaced like crazy at level 1, getting absolutely clowned on by Twitch bot. Twitch bot kept putting on the pressure, stepping up and pushing hard, then barrying for extra damage. But Urgot bot just loved the pain and kept stepping back in until he eventually died. Twitch bot moves on to the quarterfinals. Tryndamere vs Taric starts hot, with Tryndamere bot getting chunked extremely low. Then Tryndamere bot heads back in and gets ignited and almost killed, only just barely surviving. But instead of recalling, Tryndamere bot overstays out of sheer arrogance, so Taric walks up and kills him. Taric bot moves on to the quarterfinals. The next matchup is Miss Fortune vs Vex. Immediately from level 1, the two bots are scrapping it out, both getting extremely low but not killing each other. Then, at level 3, the two fight hard again, with Vex almost getting the kill on Miss Fortune. At level 4, the two start fighting yet again. Miss Fortune gets this crazy dodge on Vex Q, then Vex just orders her down to get the kill. Vex bot moves on to the quarterfinals. The fifth matchup of quarterfinals was Rakan vs Sejuani. Rakan bot had some scam kills earlier in the tournament, but versus Sej, Rakan bot actually surprised me by constantly chunking her down. Until eventually, Sejuani bot steps up like an absolute idiot, allowing Rakan to ignite and combo to kill her. Rakan bot moves on to the quarterfinals. The next match was Sett vs Nautilus. Right from level 1, Nautilus bot was hooking in and looking like an absolute madman. But as the game progressed, I started to notice that Sett bot has no idea how to use his W, either completely missing it or using it with no grit at all. This bot could not figure out how to use his kit. But at level 6, for no reason at all, Nautilus starts scrapping it with Sett in the jungle on extremely low HP. Getting beat down and altered, Nautilus bot dies. Sett bot moves on to the quarterfinals. The second last match of round 2 was Seraphine vs Renata. At level 3, Renata decided to BM and tank an entire wave, showing a disregard for her own health. At level 6, Renata bot got poked down extremely low, walked back under turret and then used ult and flashed away. Renata mind-controlled Seraphine near the turret, then pulled her in under turret to win the round in a crazy spectacle. Somehow, Renata bot moves on to the quarterfinals. The final match of round 2 was Tristana vs Vi, and this was one of the strangest matches in the tournament. For some reason, Tristana Bot would push the wave and then just walk back and forth out of turret range. I have no idea why or what was going on in Tristana Bot's brain, but she just was way too nervous to step up and kill Vi. This ended up dragging the game out so long that Tristana Bot was able to kill the first turret and then kill the second turret. Then, out of nowhere, Vibot just starts randomly jungling. I still have no idea what caused this because she's assigned mid lane, but just refused to play the role. Eventually, Vi returned to the lane, only for Tristana Bot to simply bomb and jump on her to win the game. Tristana Bot moves on to the quarterfinals. It was at this point during recording I realized this would have been so good to do on stream. So if you want to see me doing interesting league content live on stream and maybe participate in some events, go follow me at Makanosi on Twitch or click the link in the description below. The first match of quarterfinals is Varus vs Twitch. ADC versus ADC, and this was a super fast match. Right from level 1, the two bots were just autoing each other down. Then both bots go for an all-in, utilizing their standstill and auto-attack technique, and Varus dies. Twitch bot moves on to the semi-finals. The second match of quarterfinals is Taric vs Vex, but this game wasn't even a challenge. Although Taric bot got the push, Vex just started laying down the poke, even flashing forward to assert dominance. Then Taric bot decides it's not worth playing anymore and sacrifices himself to Vex. Vex bot moves on to the semi-finals. The third match of quarterfinals was Rakan vs Sett. I thought that this game might go on until the Nexus explodes, but it actually went quite fast. Rakan kept going in with W to poke Sett down, but Sett just kept winning every single trade, out-sustaining Rakan bot. Rakan bot didn't know when to quit and kept diving in, and at level 5 he got slammed into the ground and died. Sett bot moves on to the semi-finals. The final match of semi-finals was Renata vs Tristana, and this game was actually crazy. Right from level 1, the two bots were heavily trading against each other. Renata bot managed to actually get Tristana quite low, gets a good E and ignite, and just walks her down, auto-attacking her, just barely killing Tristana before she dies to the bomb. Renata bot somehow manages to make it all the way to the semi-finals. The first match of semi-finals was Twitch vs Vex. Both bots were heavily trading at level 1, but getting extremely low, they both backed away. After a reset, they were back to fighting. Hitting level 2, they go all in, trading back and forth, but Twitch just barely inches into turret range, taking too much damage and dying. If Twitch didn't take that turret shot, he may have moved on to the finals. The second match of the semi-finals was Sett vs Renata. I saw Sett versus a support and immediately thought this game would drag on forever. Sett bot doesn't know how to use his W correctly, and Renata doesn't do the most damage. Sett would keep using his W with 0 grit, but Renata was actually trading quite well. But then, Renata takes a really bad trade, getting pulled in and Wing. Walking back to turret, Sett ults tanking the turret, but Renata's W is still up, reviving her and somehow managing to inch out the win. Renata has done an absolutely crazy run, considering she's a support without many damaging abilities. The finals is between Vex bot and Renata bot. Whoever wins will match up against the previous winner Annie in a best of 3 series. Both being ranged, the two immediately begin poking each other down. The Vex bot gets Renata quite low and even flashes forward to try and secure the kill, but almost dies to turret. Then at level 3, the two are back at it. And for some reason, Renata tries tanking a huge wave, getting taken extremely low, then flashes away and W's a crazy unseen technique. But at this point in the game, Vexbot had run out of mana, giving Renata a decent window to trade, but couldn't end up getting the kill. At level 6, Renata gets taken very low, Wing and running away, but Vexbot waits it out and then hits Renata with a combo to win the game. Vexbot is the strongest bot from this half of the roster, and moves on to match up against the titan that is Anibot in the grand final. Whichever bot is the winner will be officially crowned the strongest bot. Vex vs Annie, round 1. Anibot kept throwing Qs just like she did in the first tournament, but Vexbot could actually retaliate with her spells, unlike Garen. Anibot was able to get Vexbot extremely low with an ignite and almost gets the kill. Then Vex resets, comes back to lane, and the two bots were back to poking each other out again. Anibot loses a huge trade and is left extremely low under turret. So Vexbot goes deep, walking all the way in, but Annie gets a quick stun. Unable to move, Vex tanks the turret and dies. Anibot wins the first game of the series. Vex vs Annie, round 2. The early game in the second match was very similar, but Annie was actually getting out-traded. Annie was not poking as hard as Vex, using most of her spells on the wave. But it was just poking and clearing until level 7, where Vex got a big trade on Annie, then Annie got too arrogant and Vex was easily able to kill Annie. Vexbot wins the second game, tying up the series between these two finalist bots, with one game deciding who will be crowned the strongest bot. Vex vs Annie, round 3. In game 3, Annie gets chunked heavily at level 1, but gets a good trade back at level 2. After using spells, both bots are on low health, coming right down to a photo finish. In the slow motion, we can see that Annie just barely wins before dying to Vex E, leaving Anibot as the final bot standing throughout this giant tournament. Truly the most iconic bot and the strongest bot.